What is going on, everybody? Tim from Tierphone Orbital. So today I'm going to do a quick rundown video and walkthrough on a chassis for an install commission that I completed late last week. This is for a Starfall Hilt. I have mentioned offhand in many of my previous videos how much I appreciate sabersmiths that do one-off work, and Nick from Starfall is someone who I've always appreciated his work. I've been following his work for a little while, but I have yet to really put my hands on a lot of his newer hilts. Now, I've done an install on an older model, Starfall Speeder, last year. It was a long time ago. It was one of my first commission installs, actually. So technically, it's not the first time that I have installed on a Starfall hilt. But with that being said, I really love the unique aspect of Nick's hilts. His SKs are some of the most beautiful SKs I've seen. All of his stuff is really unique and beautiful. So this is, like I said, this is an early model Starfall. There are parts of this hilt that I do recognize. This is not many sabersmiths use maglite handles anymore. I believe Nick is probably turning his own sleeves at this point. But seeing the flashlight handle on this one really brought me back to like the early days of sabersmithing, right? And like custom sabers. I actually was on the Custom Saber Shop's website the other day, and I noticed that they still have an entire section for like maglite adapters and things like that. So definitely recognize that. But other than the grip, I mean, the other parts are not very familiar to me, and I think that they are probably most likely custom, right? So anyhow, great hilt. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the install, and I will talk about the chassis, and we'll do a demo, you know, like we usually do, right? So without further ado, let's come down into Fusion. All right, so here's the chassis. With this particular hilt, inner diameter is a little thin, right? I think I've got an inch all of the way through the hilt, straight tube. So I did need to devise a stacked, semi-stacked board and battery situation here. And I was able to achieve that. We definitely had to go removable with this particular hilt. Back in the day, what some installers used to do was something called like a floating chassis. And that's essentially the leads going up to the switches and the PCB emitter were still in place, and you just kind of slid the chassis out on a tray or something like that. But with this, I wanted to go with a full removable. I think we're beyond the days of doing floating chassis with the advent of PCBs and things like that. So this is a fully removable chassis. Okay, so I've just did some light greebly work around the back because this was such a thin build and I needed channels for my wire management. I wasn't able to get too much detailed greebly work on the sides, but we've got some on the back here. Proffie board does sit here and slide up underneath this lip. Around the front, we do have a kill switch. I added 2 accent LEDs. These are square red and green LEDs that they're just programmed to have Luke's arrows blinking. It's like that's the in the config, that's how I wrote them, right? Battery sits here, and that's it. Up top, we've got a 6-rail PCB. This I got from Starfall Sabers, and on the bottom, we've got a 22mm speaker from Smuggler's Outpost. I've said this before. I actually really prefer the 22mm option that Smuggler's Outpost offers because to me, to my ears, it sounds almost, I can't really tell the difference between a 22 and a 24. And with the 22, obviously, you get more room for wire management. You get more room to actually fully enclose that speaker in the chassis. So they're just so much easier to work with. So I'm a big proponent of 22mm speakers now. So I'll probably be using those in almost all of my small builds like this. All the 1-inch builds, 22mm, right? So anyhow, let's come up top and talk about the hilt. So here it is. So this is a Starfall. I did not get an official name for this hilt. It's just a Starfall early gen hilt, custom hilt. So like I said, This is a mag light handle. Well, I mean, it's a flashlight handle. I don't know if it's technically actually a mag light, but that was one of the first things that I noticed, right? And making our way up, maybe this is an old Saberforge shell, or perhaps Nick turned this out himself. I'm not sure, right? There are some plates. So there's a switch plate here in yellow, and up at the front, there is like a shroud in yellow. I really dig this yellow on black. I'm not quite sure where both of these came from. Maybe custom by Nick, but up top there's like something. There's something imprinted. There's a letter C up top here, so it's probably cut, obviously, from something, right? So anyhow, very straightforward, very simple setup. We've got an unscrewable pommel. So because this is not a fully modular hilt, this is why we had to go with a removable, right? But that's it. Great utility hilt. Really cool hilt. So the chassis. Here is the chassis. It's a small guy, okay? To use your chassis, spring side is your negative. You want to put the flat part of your battery into the tray and hit that kill switch. So there's those blinking LEDs. Again, on each one of the written configs, it's just set up as Link's. It's set up as Luke's arrow config. So you put your battery in, you turn it on, slide the chassis into the hilt until it stops. Okay, so this chassis is going to be sticking out a little bit at the bottom, and that's fine. You want to be able to grab it without having to do the old Heinz ketchup bottle maneuver to get your chassis out, right? When you've got your chassis in, screw your pommel in until it stops. You don't want to over crank this. Just screw it in so that it's pushing that chassis up into those upper PCB pins, right? And then you're ready to go.
That lightsaber was Luke's.
So let's come down to the bottom. Whoops. So twist to activate, twist to deactivate are on. Yeah, just a great utility hilt, man. Whoops. Let's put a blade in it. So this is a 1-inch blade holder. There is a set screw here around front. You want to make sure that that is all the way backed out. Slide your blade so it's just resting on those PCB pins, and then tighten your set screw. And then you're ready to go. Great. Let's see what else we got on here.
Coffee.
So if you're looking at the hilt, the switch to your left is the main. Switch to the right is your aux.
The national team is ready. Obi-Wan Kenobi.
One more.
Obi-Wan.
Anomaly.
So I've just set this up with my stock blade config. So this has been, some of the blade configs on here have been set up with color wheel. So to access your color wheel, you want to hold down aux and tap main. When you find a color you like, tap main again, and it'll lock that color in, right? Great hilt. So, that's it. That is the Starfall. I don't have an official name for that. So, it's a Starfall hilt. It's a great utility hilt. Super sturdy. Feels great in the hand. It's a great hilt. It's a really nice hilt. So I'm hoping that one of these days I get to put my hands on some of Nick's newer work. Again, he's just making some of the most beautiful hilts that we see in the community. Guys like him that do these custom one-offs, I really appreciate. So anyhow, that's it. To the client, thank you very much for trusting me with your install. To the viewers, everybody, thank you for watching. And if anyone has any questions, as I always say, please don't be a stranger. Reach out. And with that being said, May the Force be with you always. Have a good one, everybody.